Okay, so f is a continuous and closed interval between a and b, then f has a minimum and a maximum on the intervals. In the past, we have learned about theorems. Which two theorems you remember? Squeeze theorem, intermediate value theorem. Good. So now we talk about extreme value theorem, which is another new theorem. We had two more theorem coming out. We also have the triangle with the differentiable and continuous. Those are all big topic on AP exam. So if you can prepare that very well, you don't even need to know how to do math. You can actually earn a lot of points from it. So understand the theorem is very, very important. Now for me, like if I have some graph like this, so this is A, this is B. You can have, say, this point is a relative minimum. And you can say this point is called a endpoint minimum, but in this case is absolute. I think that's how to spell absolute. Absolute maximum. Now I hear relative minimum. Now why is a relative? Well, first, you guys need to understand relative means if the function has to go down and then go up. So it has to have an option. It has to have a process of the function decreasing and then increasing. That's in order to create a minimum. And after that, if you want to have relative maximum, it has to be increasing and decreasing. So this point can never be a relative maximum. This point is called endpoint maximum, but at this case is absolute maximum. But usually I never call it endpoint, so endpoint maximum. But usually I here never gonna call that. Now sometimes you can have endpoint right here. This is a neither maximum or minimum. Does that make sense? Are you sure? Okay. So this point is relative min because it has decreasing, increasing. This one is an endpoint maximum, but in this case it's going to be absolute maximum. So this point has another name. What do you think this point name? What is it? No. No. Absolute minimum. So absolute is the lowest and the highest. And we also call this extrema. We also call this extrema. Extrema is the lowest or the highest within the interval. Okay, extrema is the lowest and highest. So you can be relative minimum and absolute minimum at the same time. Or you can be relative maximum and absolute maximum at the same time. But it's all relative minimum has to be a absolute minimum? No. Whatever function go all the way here, then this point is absolute min, and this is only relative. Does that make sense?
So it's only relative if we can see it on the graph?
It's only relative if you see the decreasing and increasing. Now, only if that you see that's the lowest point, you can call it absolute.
How can we know if it's absolute if our graph is not complete?
Well, right now we give you an interval between A and B.
So if you have like a quadratic,
You can.
the point on the bottom, then that's absolute minimum.
So let's just say if you have a function go like this all the way here, this is gonna be the absolute min, and this only relative, not absolute anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's it. That's just understanding of that. Now, why the extreme value theorem focus on this continuous interval between A and B. Why do they focus on that? They focus on that to tell you that if those situation doesn't comply, there is no minimum, and there's no maximum. Does not have to be. So I'll show you a case that is like that. So for example, a very similar case, I'm gonna have a solid dot here, and I'm gonna have open dot here. And this open dot, I have no idea where they locate at. So they can locate at this case 3.99 or 3.999 or 3.99999, because we don't know what is the defined maximum here. If you look at here, this is a 4. We know it's 4, but we cannot say it's 4 because 4 is not defined. So we cannot say it's 3.9 or 3.99 or 3.999. So there was no maximum at all. There was a minimum. There was a minimum, and this is relative, but there's no max. But Accordance theorem says it must have minimum and max at the same time. But in this case, there's no max because it's an open circle at the endpoints. Also, that you have this case. You also don't know where the minimum is. Is at negative 4.9 or negative 4.99. So there was no min. It doesn't have a min. It has a max. It has an absolute max. And it's not relative because there's no up and down situations. So that's just basic understanding. Are we okay? Yes? Okay. The next thing is, what is critical number? What is critical number? This is a big deal because sometimes the AP exam asks you what is critical number. Critical number is f prime of x is equal to 0. Actually, f prime c. That's be better. C. I might use what textbook says. And then c is a critical number. Also, there's another type of c. C is equal to undefined. That's also qualified as a critical number. So there's two types of qualification. Now, usually people don't remember this one. People usually don't remember this one. So people always forget this, but this happened too. So this is a critical number. I'm going to show you. This just means slope is equal to 0, right? So which is this situation here. So if I have something like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, something like this. All this point is my slope is equal to 0 because the slope at that point is all 0. So slope is equal to 0 is a potential min and max. Why did I say potential instead of says always min and max? Why did I say that? Look at this point here. Is that min or max? No, but slope is equal to 0 as well. But it's not min or max. It just says something called stationary point, which is a point that just kind of pause, right? And then go up further again. right? So it's going up. If you play stock, you know, sometimes they go up and they pause and you start selling. You're selling you thought you were profit taking, but it's gonna go up again. And you're like, shit, it went up. But you sold at here. But sometimes they can turn around, go down, and you will say, oh, okay, I just missed the peak. But you're not always gonna sell the highest. You're not gonna sell it. You're not always gonna buy at lowest. That's just how the stock works. It's always the other way around. Because if you don't have the right thinking, you will always lose money in stock. Okay, so does that make sense? Now, where's f prime c that's undefined? Well, if it's undefined, it's those cases where you have something like a cusp, like this. You can have it like this too. You can have a cusp. So this is f prime of c is equal to undefined. Why? Because you have a something called vertical tangent. If you draw a tangent line here, it's vertical. That's only if original function is defined in f of c. Okay, that's only the original function is defined in original function. So does that make sense? Now, there is a reverse theorem. We call it a relative extrema only occur in critical number. And this is just a statement I want to say. So relative extrema only occur at critical number. If it's already relative min and relative max, so that means it has to be those points. Derivative has to equal to 0. Or this one. Derivative have to be equal to undefined. But not this case, right? But if I already told you it's a relative min and max, it has to be a critical number. So it's like saying all square are rectangles, but not all rectangle are square. Do you guys remember that when you do geometry? And the same thing is all critical number is like a rectangle, but it's not always square. Square is like a maximum min. But if I told you it's a maximum min, it has to be critical number. All square are rectangle. It's something, same statement. Does that make sense or no? Okay. Don't just nod. If it doesn't make sense, tell me. Because I hate people just nod. And inside they're like, I have no freaking clue what he's saying. Don't just nod. Question me. Always. You make me a better teacher if you do that. If you just nod, you not make me a better teacher. Yes. Why what? Because if you don't ask me a question, of course I'm gonna make me better, worse teacher. Because you should always question. Remember, like I told you guys before, like in the pre-algebra, your teacher will tell you, says anything to the 0 power is 1, but you never question her. You should question her because you don't know if she's a good teacher or not. You should question her, and 90% of the time or 95% of the time they cannot answer that question. That's why they told you just memorize it. But if I don't know how to now if you can make that teacher better is by asking that questions. That's very, very important because, for example, I don't know what 1 radian is when I taught pre-calc until one day a student says, hey, what does radian mean? And I say, wait, maybe I teach the subject, I should go look it up. So that made me a better teacher in that moment. I remember one student asked me, what is log? When you ask me, I make her feel stupid. I was like, I already talked whole week, and how come you don't know? But I was being an ass because I should have explained to her. But the thing is, I didn't know how to answer her, so I make her like feel like an idiot. But I was an ass at that moment, so I wasn't being a good teacher. I'm open to that, to say that that's my fault. So you should question me. And if I don't know, from then on, I know when student ask me I don't know, I rather tell them I don't know. I will not tell them I know, but for sure I'm gonna go look it up. I'm gonna say I don't know, Matthew. I don't know how to answer your question, and I'm gonna go find it, or I'm gonna go ask you to go find it. But I'm not gonna bullshit my way through. I don't know. I think that instant teach me to be a better person. Just you cannot do that. You have, as a teacher's job, you have to answer questions. Yeah.
You scroll up
Yeah.
to the, so you see the one on the left where it has a relative minimum? The graph on the left.
This.
Yeah. So that is a critical number.
Yep, that's a critical number.
Like what exactly is the number?
We don't know. We had to go find it because it depends on what this function is. I just random draw it, so I don't know what kind of function is that. But if I were to estimate about half, x equal to half, it's going to be a critical number.
The one on the right is not a critical number?
The one on the left is not differentiable at that point. It's not continuous. It's not continuous, there's no minimum required. You can have minimum and maximum, but it's not necessary have to have it.
So if it has a maximum.
You could have like this, right?
Yeah.
You could have minimum, you could have maximum, but it's not a for sure thing. If it's a theorem, it has to be for sure thing. It has to have minimum and maximum. And some people's gonna ask me next question: what if it's a horizontal line? The horizontal line, that means every single point is relative max. Every point is absolute max, and every point is absolute min. So that kind of get rid of that questions, because it is continuous function, is differentiable. Oh, you don't have to be differentiable, sorry. You just have to be defined A and B. So you can have every single point is absolute max and absolute min.
So if it has like a absolute max, absolute min, but it has like a whole, like above the minimum, it doesn't have a relative minimum, so it's not a critical number.
Can you say that again?
So if it does have an absolute max and it does have an absolute min, but there's a open point like above the minimum, it's somewhere above the minimum. So that would not be a relative min.
You can have relative min, but it's not always. You can have a absolute and relative max and min, but does not always. The statement only says if the function is continuous, it must be have a relative minimum and relative maximum. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. It must have a minimum and maximum. Does not have the same relative. That's what a statement says. So if you say it's one thing, that thing has to be true at all times. It's a theorem. It's not. It cannot hold. You cannot have what if this. There's no what if. That has to be true.
Okay.
Otherwise, it won't call theorem. It'll be a hypothesis.
Right.
I don't know if I answered your question. Okay. So how do I find extrema within intervals? What do we know about extrema? It's the highest and the lowest point, right? So find the extrema within closed interval. Within closed interval. Find, first thing is you're gonna find a critical point, critical number. You know what's the reason you find critical number? Because they have potential relative max and potential relative min. Between A and B, second. You evaluate F at the critical number. So you go find out what is the Y value of that. third. But what happens if your endpoint is higher your relative? Then your endpoint should be absolute, right? So you have to evaluate f at the endpoints. Ys, because there are two endpoints. 4. Compare the y value and decide max and min. Absolute, sorry. So you decide after you did that. So we're gonna point out a question says f of x equal to 3x to the fourth minus 4x to the third. And between the interval and -1, 2. How do I find the absolute maximum value and absolute minimum value within interval? Follow this 4 thing. But it's very intuitive. You're finding critical number because you want to see where the relative is. And then you're going to evaluate those because you want to see how high are they and how low are they. But then you say, well, what if the endpoint's higher? Then you plug in the endpoint to evaluate, see which one's higher, which one's lower. And then you compare. So what do we do the first step? Take a derivative instead of equal to 0, right? Can I factor out 12x squared of x minus 1? 12x squared equal to 0, x minus 1 equal to 0. X equal to 0, x equal to 1. There was 2 critical numbers. How many endpoints are they? How many endpoints? 2. Okay, so this part I'm not going to be proud of because sometimes I had to teach toward the AP exam. At the end of the day, you are passing that exam. So I'm going to show you how to beat that exam. And this is for a grader who's been grading for the last 20 years. He says AP grader, if they ask you absolute maximum and minimum value, they want you to use a table to evaluate each thing. Which one? -1, 0, 1, and 2. It seems like I plug in every one number, but no. This represents the endpoints. This represents endpoints. This represents critical number and critical number. There's 2 critical numbers. It doesn't mean I have to take all the integer there. Now, when you plug in, you're not plugging into the derivative. You plug into the original function to decide are they the highest or lowest. Am I going too fast? So I plug in -1. I'm gonna get 7, I believe.
Wait, would you plug -1 into the original?
Yes, into the original. This is f of x. See that?
Okay.
And plug in 0, it's going to give me 0. Plug in 1, it's going to be -1. Plug in 2 is going to give you 16 times 3, 48. 48 minus 32 is 16, I think. And this card's getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, 60.
Okay. You guys holding down together, holding down 4.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10.
Yeah, we got bigger.
11.
You can combine.
Is this the smallest? We didn't class yet.
This is probably the smallest card. But I do gain one student from last period. I don't know if you guys know her.
Ooh.
I don't know her name. I gotta look it up.
I don't know her either.
She's Turkish. How many Turkish person you know?
Danny's Turkish.
He's Turkish?
Yeah.
Really? I thought he's white. He doesn't look Turkish.
When
Wait.
parents is Turkish. You got one this way.
Oh. So where is the maximum value at? Okay. Be careful how I answer this question. Whenever I say value on AP exam, it's not where the X is. It's the output. It's 16. So maximum value is at 16. Minimum value is what? -1, thank you. So this is absolute min, and this is absolute max. It happened on both. One's on critical number, one's on endpoints. It's not always critical number means that. Okay? With that being said, the best way to know its value, just call it a different thing from now on. If I ever say it's value, you correct me, says YU. It just add a line on the bottom, says YU. Yaoyu. Yaoyu. Yo-you. Yeah. So is it Y value? Okay. If APXN ever asks you like this, you need to know how the way they ask. If they say where in X it occur absolute max or absolute min, man, wrong crush. You're gonna eat a whole box of cookie. You're gonna get diabetes.
It's the last one. These are kind of addicting.
Yeah, it's not.
Damn, I didn't even get one.
You can get one.
No, that's fine. I'm gonna die.
You might need a sugar when you take that test.
Nah, I have my sugar-free gum on it.
Sugar free. But we're gonna see what Indian tutor is like.
You want me to give you his phone number?
No.
No.
Does it have heavy Indian accent?
He has a heavy. I can't understand like half the stuff he says.
Then he's
I can.
then
Because
why?
I'm really
If he speaks to me in Telugu, I'd probably understand him better. Yeah,
That's funny.
I've done it.
If it's speaking on dialect, you probably understand it more.
Huh?
If speaking on the language, you understand more.
Yeah, I can barely speak it, but
It's Gen experience. You understand all of it, but you never speak it.
Mr. Ye, you want a Colombian candy stick?
No, thank you. What is a Colombian candy
It's
stick?
a candy stick from Colombia.
Oh, it's from Maria.
No, I just got it from like one of those.
Maria keep on eating this thing that
It looks like
keep on keep on sucking on it. What is that thing she's eating?
dude, smoke it like this for you.
She like squeeze on top and she just. What is that called?
Mind if I mess up your taste?
Yo, my mouth watered thinking that they're so sour. Yeah, Marie, all the time.
Yeah, I see. I'm like, what the hell are you eating?
They're not good. They're not
They were like pure sugar, right?
Well, the stuff you got the other day, those
That's
were so
literally
good.
They're so sour.
What were they called?
They're called juicy. Juicy.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, juice ones? I'm not experiencing that.
When I was a kid, I used to drink.
How much time I have?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys gotta try one question. So just build a table. That's a very easy one. They're not built to be very hard. They can be hard if they are trick, but we don't have time to go through the trick one. Mostly people usually don't remember it because the evaluation is so hard. Usually students deflate.
Mr. Yeah, if Mr. walks in right now, I'm really sorry.
Why?
No reason.
What did you do?
He's getting ready for the test.
You getting ready for a test? We both. It's okay. I don't give a shit about him. I think the new administrator haven't stepped in the door in my room yet. They're supposed to come like coaching, like teaching you how to teach, or give you feedback, but I haven't seen her step in my door yet.
Scared to give you feedback, Mr. Ye.
intimidated by you.
If it's
I'm too much of
rough,
alpha.
I'll get a nosebleed. Because I've done this before.
You only have to do 4 values for the x.
Not full value, depending on how many critical value. If you have like 6 critical value, then you have to do 8 different numbers.
8.
Yeah, because you have 6
You always have
critical
to do
numbers.
2 more than the actual.
Yeah, because of the endpoint.
mean,
Are you okay, Norman? Norman, don't die on me.
Yeah.
You still have to take that test. You do not die before you take that test. You can die afterward and step out of my door so I don't have to fill in paperwork. Because I can't spell for anything, so
My parents told me never to waste food.
yeah, just I would like drag you outside and you take your last breath.
Get nothing?
No, thank you.
Wait, Mr. Nick, for the other example, we got our values from the table.
Mhm.
So, and we plugged just the interval into the actual equation.
We plug in the critical number and the endpoints into a original function to compare. You compare and then decide. So whatever is highest is your absolute maximum value. Whatever lowest is going to be absolute minimum value.
What's the point of taking the derivative if we just use the table to find our answers?
If you take a derivative, because not all point we had to do it. At this case, it seems like I did all the integers, right? But it's not. If it was, let's say, if it's 0 to 10 and only have 2 as a critical number, then I only have to do 0, 10, and critical number 2. And in this case, it just happened to be like every single value, but this is not.
There's no nutrition
No,
level.
it's just.
I don't really get it.
I need to track my math. I'm going to start learning.
Okay, to answer your question, what if I give you a wider range? Let's say 0 to 100, right?
I'm not gonna
Do you want to plug in every number? Shh. You don't want to plug in every number. You want to plug in 0 and 100 or the endpoint. And you're going to plug in that whatever derivative equal to 0. Could be only happen at 50. Then you just plug in 50 to evaluate. In this case, it seems like I plug in every single value just because the critical number is 0 and 1, and the endpoint is at -1 and 2.
Okay. So you just do the first and the last, and then
And all the critical number in between.
whatever you find from your.
Yeah. But in this case, that you will see that I only have 3 values, I think.
I don't know. That's why.
Wait, you have all of them.
Do I?
Yeah, because you have 0.
Okay, let's try it. So derivative of this is gonna be 3x squared minus what? 3x. And if I take out x, that's gonna be what?
You take out 3.
You can take out 3, x minus 1. So x equal to 0, x equal to 1. So it seems like you had to do all of them, yes. Now, that's just only in this case I give it to you. Now, I'm going to go ahead and evaluate, but next case is not. So we're going to show you that next case is not. There's -1, 0, 1, and 2. But not all the time you're going to have to do all the value because I could have just critical number at 1. Then I don't need to do 0. But in this case, happen to every value you need to evaluate. So if I plug in -1, I will get what? -5/2, 0, and -1/2, and 2, right? So it happened at this is absolute min and this is absolute max. So I just trying to show you the absolute min and max does not happen to be at critical number. It can be at endpoints. How much time I have?
You have 8 minutes.
Good. We can talk about one more question. This question is pretty special. And between -1 to 3. So this one, not every value you have to plug in now. But this one does have to plug in more value than you think. But I want you to find critical number here. It turns out if you find one critical number, that is wrong. You're supposed to get 2. How do you find the second one? That's a problem. How much does tutor from India cost?
$182.
Huh?
$182
per hour.
I think it's 10 hours.
That's like $18 per.
Yeah, it's really good.
We don't know that.
Yeah, but I don't know. We'll see after your test. We'll judge your Indian tutor by how you do, how well you do on the test.
So
Maybe-
I won't get the grade for like what I get on this test. It's his grade, right?
This is great. You're supposed to find critical numbers, 2 critical numbers instead of 1. Now the reason why there's small plot twist here, if I take a derivative, I'm gonna get 2. And I'm gonna get x to the negative 1/3 and 2 in the front, right? Now, what happened is if you set it equal to 0 here, you will find there's only 1. I will show you. So this is the wrong way. Wrong way. Why is wrong way? If I just set this, and a lot of you guys don't know how to find 0 here, it's actually not that bad. It's 2 equal to 2x to the negative 1/3. You can say 1 equal to x to the 1/3 negative. And you can do inverse power. So inverse power means you do -3 on both sides. And that's x equal to 1. It seems like there's only an x equal to 1. But guess what? Since critical number can be undefined as well, you have to look for undefined. The only time you have undefined is its denominator is equal to 0. That means there is a denominator here. And if you combine fractions, then you will get x to the 1/3 and 2x to the 1/3 minus 2. Now you see, the top can equal to 0 and x equal to 1. The bottom can equal to 0, x equal to 0. So it turns out there's 2 critical number as opposed to 1. This case doesn't happen all the time. It will never happen on your AP exam because they'll stump over all the kids. And they don't want to create a question that will stump all the kids. But again, I want you to be better than most of the kids. So sometimes that if you have x to the negative 1/3, guess what? You do have a cusp. Oh, this also told you there's a cusp. And what is a cusp? Cusp like this. Okay, like how my finger is, like a heart, like the top part of the heart. At this part, it's going to be a vertical tangent, so because my finger is touching like this, it's a vertical slope. Okay, and I'll show you in a second. So then I'm going to go evaluate x and f of x. And remember, this table is good to help you. So I'm going to plug in -1 and 3. What else? What are the 2 values I need to plug in?
0.
0 and what else? 1, but not 2. 2 is not needed because 2 is not a critical number. If I plug in -1, I'm going to get -5. 0, I'm going to get 0. 1, I'm going to get -1. 3, I'm going to get very weird numbers. 6 minus 3, third roots of 9. It's roughly -0.24. This is an absolute min. And I think this part is absolute max. The other ones are not qualified. So I'll show you here. This will look like this equation. So it's going to be 2x minus 3x to the 2/3. You look at this cusp, it has a vertical tangent there. And I want to between, it's between which 2 values? -1 to 3, right? So it turns out this point is the highest, and the point here is the lowest. -5 is the lowest at endpoint, and here is the highest at 0. See that 2/3 power is called even over odd power. If anytime you have x to the even over odd power, you're gonna have a cusp, and that cusp is gonna look like this at 0 here. Now I'll show you the Hart equation. The Hart equation has a cusp. Because I just type in this, you're gonna see the top part of the heart. And if you build this equation, this is actually a circle combination with a sine wave, and it kind of built into the heart situation. You will create a heart. Okay. I have one boy. His name is Luis Diaz. He's pretty cute. A lot of girls will think he's cute. He asked a valedictorian out for homecoming, and he write this function, and he's like, "Would you be my function?" And told him to enter the calculator and come out with the heart. And for a nerdy girl, she was like, "Yeah, sure." But would you be my function?
Can you slow it down? Wait, slow it.
Can you slow it down?
Yeah.
You don't want a heart to be slowed down. You gotta beat fast.
This one has a
barely pumping. What? This is a pretty normal heartbeat. A little bit slower. It's like an athlete's heart. It's pretty cool. No. Do you want me to grade it? Did you know what you're doing? No? Okay. Well, that's good. Half of it is good.
wasn't it supposed to be really hard?
No, was it hard?
No, because it was easy, and I feel like I failed because it's too easy. Like
Oh. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to grade them.
Because on the homework we did like the shadow column with the different shadow and solve for D and so, and then the test was like, what is the DXDT?
Which is not good, yeah.
So it was like
I mean, we still had
it was suspicious. I'm like, I never understood this before.
You gotta move your card.
Same for that for now.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
How much was that?
They're like $1 for the little bag. I mean,
$1 for
I'm in the clear. Yeah.
How much do you think they raised?
I don't know. Probably good now. They had like a $5 bag too.
Let me move off the theater. This is the last year, sir. Mr. Yang, I applied to be in Mu Alpha Theta. I didn't get anything back. I'm not in it.
I don't know. I didn't decide that. I don't decide that. I honestly don't. You have to ask Sheila.
Who?
Sheila, you can have a cookie.
Wait, is it selected?
Probably was, but I wanted to be on the competitive team, but I'm not doing that.
You get better.
I'm trying.
Get better.
I'm.
You're gonna use that 10 hours in a week to get that.
Like a math club.
Yeah, it's national. Or not national. It's like national.
Look, Davis, you might have to work with Calc 1 kids today. I don't know if Sheila is gonna be here, and I don't know. I know for sure Wim's not gonna be here. So you probably had to work with Matthew and Liang Liang and things.
Thank you.
But it's okay. I heard you did good on your debate. Good job.
That last one was a bit of a mess up. We should have gone third, but we placed first on someone messed up their reading results.
But still, you've been doing pretty good. I always see the result on the email. Regardless, compared to the first year, like I would never think you'll make it on the debate team, because but this year you improve a lot, so which is good. So, yeah.
What happened to Nomi? Looks ridiculous looking.
So yeah. I get my retake back.
You can, but your retake didn't do as well as you should, but you still can make up to a 70. Yeah, but it was pretty close. It was pretty
Yeah, I
close.
was good on it. I don't know.
Yeah, but the maximum you can get is 80, so you got 9 miss mark. So, but you can redo it here, and you can get 70.
Can I see where I messed up on?
You can see what you messed up, yeah. Oh, how come you're not here today?
So there's like an event for like the baseball thing. I wasn't sure if I was gonna go to it, and I had like a sub